Hello whiskey lovers, this is Mark from WhiskyWhistle.com bringing you whiskey review number 3. A single malt from Scotland, from the Isle of Skye, called Talisker. You can see it right there next to me. Now let's get started with just a little bit about Talisker, and then we'll push forward with the tasting and the nosing and the tasting, I should say. Anyway, there's the box for you. From Talisker. Hopefully you can see that. Beautiful blue box. Apparently rebranded not too long ago. They did a very nice job with that. Let me read this to you. Talisker is the only single malt whiskey made on the Isle of Skye, beside the shore of Loch Harport in the jagged shadows of the peaks of the Cuillin. Sorry if my pronunciation is off. Founded in 1830 by Hugh McCaskill, Talisker Distillery remains faithful to traditional values. 180 years of knowledge has been passed down through the generations of distillers. The result is this much prized whiskey, described by famous Scottish poet Robert Louis Stevenson as the King o' Drinks. Made by the sea in every sense, the powerful peat smoke and maritime character of Talisker reflect in its storm-lashed surroundings. Beneath the deep, stormy peat smoke character of Talisker lies a rich, dried fruit sweetness, followed by a satisfying peppery finish. Superb with smoked salmon and brown bread. Now that's the first time I've seen a recommendation for a food pairing right on the box, so that's interesting. I'll have to try that sometime. Next, the bottle. Very standard fare. Very simple bottle. One thing that's interesting to note about this single malt Scotch whiskey is that rather than be bottled at the industry minimum of 40%, they've chosen to bottle it at 45.8% alcohol. So that's roughly 15% more of the original spirit that goes into the bottle. It's a 70 centiliter or 700 milliliter bottle. Some bottles are bottled at 750 milliliters. Some are bottled at 700, but again you get 15% more of the spirit in this bottle, so I'm okay with that. Okay, anyway, it's a 10-year-old. This is their 10-year-old expression. So Talisker 10-year-old is what people would refer to it as. And color-wise, that's slightly above just the standard amber shade, maybe about a +1, give or take. And again, I'm not a professional about the color of whiskies. I do believe it is well known that some colorant, the caramel E150, has been added to this, and it should also be noted that Talisker is owned by Diageo. Founded by Hugh McCaskill, and apparently he and his brother Kenneth, they had some trouble finding the perfect place to start the distillery. Then they approached the MacLeod clan, the clan of MacLeod or MacLeod. Again, I apologize if my pronunciation is off. And they rented Talisker House, and that's how it got its name. So very interesting. I believe that was 1830, 1920-ish. United Distillers, who became Diageo, ended up purchasing the distillery. So interesting. And as you can see on the wall, I've got a few photos. This is the Isle of Skye, and if I had a full map of Scotland, you would see Highland, the Highland region, just to the east of Skye, and it's called an islands distillery, and the region is beginning to be separated from the Highlands, although technically it is considered a Highlands distillery because the islands are not recognized yet as their own region for Scotch whiskey. But anyway, we can still call it an islands distillery and an islands single malt. We'll talk more about that another day. And a beautiful picture of the distillery there. You can see the mountains in the background. You get a real feel of that stormy, coastal character in the photo. And the master distiller, whose name is Mark also. I believe it's Mark Lockhead. Anyway, thank you, sir, for your fine work. Now then, let's get on to the matter at hand. Let's pour that one. Beautiful sound as I uncork that, isn't it? All right. And again, I'm left-handed, so pardon me for switching hands all the time. Now this is a single malt. Again, given its strength, you don't really need much. So that's probably 20 to 25 milliliters. That's about all you need. And let's see how it smells. For newcomers, you'll put that to your nose, and you might say, "Oh, it smells smoky," and it definitely does. That's the peat smoke. Peat is what eventually becomes coal after a few more thousand, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of years. Peat was used in Scotland to keep houses warm, especially areas that were lacking in trees or lacking in coal, and also used to fire the still, to boil the liquid inside the still, and also to dry the barley malt as they dry it, to stop the growth of the shoot inside the barley corn. And it's that drying of the malt with the peat fire, the peat reek it's known as, the peat reek, which gives Talisker its smoky character. There's also a bit of sweetness in there, and just as it says on the box, it's kind of a dried fruity character. Raisins, maybe dried plums, and kind of smells a little salty, and that may be just because the distillery is located so close to the ocean. Who knows? Now, I should taste it a little bit neat first. Always try it a bit neat, even if it's a high strength. Just take a very little bit if it is much higher than 40. And you'll feel the warmth of the alcohol. It's not sharp, and I believe that's an indication of how slow they allow the distillation to occur. So there's not a real bite to it, which you'll get with other maybe less expensive blended Scotch whiskies or bourbons or Canadian whiskies. Anyway, the flavor, again, you get that little bit of peat, some nice fruits, and now I find that, again, there's a bit of a peppery note there. This actually is my second bottle that I've purchased. The first bottle, I noticed a little bit more of the peppery note. This one a little bit less, and again, there's a bit of variation from batch to batch. The pepper was quite nice, but this one, with its a little bit more of a fruity note, is also very welcome. And while this is made with 100% barley malt, has to be, that's what we call a single malt whiskey. There's a slight sort of minty note, which is somewhat like a rye. Now, that's not to say there's any rye in it. That's just to say that the flavor that's coming from the stills has a character that is somewhat similar to the spicy note of a rye whiskey. Anyway, so now I'm going to add a little bit of water. Oh, I forgot the water. Pardon me. My first on-air blunder. There we go. Okay, so we'll add a little bit of water. I'm going to put in about 3 or 4 milliliters. Not a whole lot. And I'll just roll it around the glass gently just to get the water to mix in. And the peat subsides now. And now I'm smelling a lot more of the grain. And I feel like I'm smelling a very heavy Scandinavian rye bread. Maybe with a little bit of butter on it. Yeah, the peat has really subsided, and I think, you know, again, it's wonderful neat. Let's just taste it now with a little bit of water. And somehow now the peppery note is really being more active. I'm also tasting kind of a ripe apple, slightly caramelized. And if you cut the apples up and you throw them on a hot fry pan, let's add a touch more water. There we go. And we're likely much closer to 40% now than 45.8. Yeah, the peat has really gone off in the distance with the fruit coming a little bit more into the foreground. And you want to try to hold it in your mouth a little bit longer. You'll get that peppery note. It's kind of like a mixed, you know, you can get the black pepper, you can get white pepper, and you can get the one that has the red and other colored corns in there. And it's a little more flavorful. Anyway, that's the peppery note I'm noticing. Now, the one I've got here in behind, this one has been now sitting in the glass for roughly half an hour with a lid on it. Let's see how this compares now. And with time also, the peat is not really that noticeable either. So give it some time in the glass if you want to see how the peat changes over time. Don't get me wrong, it's still peaty. There's something a little more fruity and oily comes through with the time in the glass. Anyway, very lovely. So as far as marks for the Talisker 10-year-old single malt whiskey from the Isle of Skye in Scotland, I'm going to give this one 85 out of 100. 85. Anyway, 85 out of 100. We'll leave it there for now. The last bottle really surprised me. Again, there's a variation from bottle to bottle. Don't be shocked. You have to just enjoy the differences. This distiller tries to keep the standards, keep the flavors the same, but you know, you're playing with a small still. Well, it's a large still, but from batch to batch, there's a little bit of variation, and you should just try to enjoy how there's subtle changes, as long as the quality stays the same, which I feel it has. Anyway, thank you again, Mr. Lockhead. And this is Mark from WhiskyWhistle.com. The website is now up and running with links to Facebook and Twitter. So please feel free to join me. Thanks very much for watching, and have a great day.